welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at another SCP. Today we're going to go from a different source. We're going to look at SCP Illustrated today. A lot of you have been recommending other SCP sources, so we're going to take a look at SCP Illustrated today, featuring the Vulcan. So maybe it's kind of like a 2-for-1 there. I will continue to do the other SCP videos because I do really like the animation style and I feel like it's very clear for everyone to see. But in the meantime, we will be branching out. So today, let's take a look at SCP-049, the Plague Doctor, see what he's all about.
The following data release has been authorized by the following council members and administration staff. Incident 049, 16th of April 2017. Post-investigation report.
It has been ascertained that the death of Dr. Ham was due to two primary factors. Dr. Ham did not activate the emergency alert system. Agent negligence resulting in his failure to monitor the exchange via CCTV. Had Agent monitoring the exchange as his standard protocol, it is certain that security teams would have been able to successfully intervene before SCP-049 killed Dr. Ham. Evidence from this investigation has been submitted to the appropriate party to be used in Agent's court-martial hearing. Dr. Ham's next of kin have been informed.
Okay. The Plague
Description. SCP-049 is a humanoid entity roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and the ceramic mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. X-rays indicate that, despite this, SCP-049 does have a humanoid skeletal structure beneath its outer layer. SCP-049 is capable of...
Okay, I do like the fact that they get right into it and immediately go into what the SCP is. So that's good. So we've got the Plague Doctor, and his robes are a part of his body.
Speech in a variety of languages, though tends to prefer English or medieval French. While SCP-049 is generally cordial and cooperative with Foundation staff, it can become especially irritated or at times outright aggressive if it feels that it is in the presence of what it calls the pestilence. Although the exact nature of this pestilence is currently unknown to Foundation researchers, it does seem to be an issue of immense concern to SCP-049. SCP-049 will become hostile with individuals it sees as being affected by the pestilence, often having to be restrained should it encounter such. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill any such individual. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact. How this occurs is currently unknown, and all autopsies of SCP-049's victims have invariably been inconclusive.
Okay, so he can kill people with a touch? Is that like... But does he have like Death's touch? You know, like the Grim Reaper where he just touches you with a just a single finger and boop, you're instantly dead. Is this what he does? Seems a little not like a doctor, right? Aren't doctors supposed to save lives instead of instantly take them? Let's continue.
Conclusive. SCP-049 has expressed frustration or remorse after these killings, indicating that they have done little to kill the pestilence. They will usually seek to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse using the implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries on its person at all times. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-049-2. SCP-049-2 instances are reanimated corpses that have been operated on by SCP-049. These instances do not seem to retain any of their prior memories or mental functions, having only basic motor skills and response mechanisms. While these instances are generally inactive, moving very little and in a generally ambulatory fashion, they can become extremely aggressive if provoked, or if directed to by SCP-049. SCP-049-2 instances express active biological functions, though these are vastly different from currently understood human physiology. Despite these alterations, SCP-049 often remarks that the subjects have been cured.
Cured. Well, he's able to kill people with a touch, yet he's still able to reanimate the corpses, effectively making zombies. Once he's reanimated the corpses, he considers the corpses cured. It's almost interesting, because I was going to say it's almost like he views life as the plague, but it's not, because he doesn't attack everyone. It says he only attacks people who he thinks has this pestilence. Interesting.
Special Containment Procedures. SCP-049 is contained within a standard secure humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19. SCP-049 must be sedated before any attempts to transport it. During transport, SCP-049 must be secured within a Class 3 humanoid restriction harness, including a locking collar and extension restraints, and monitored by no fewer than 2 armed guards. While SCP-049 is generally cooperative with most Foundation personnel, outbursts or sudden changes in behaviour are to be met with elevated force. Under no circumstances should any personnel come into direct contact with SCP-049 during these outbursts. In the event SCP-049 becomes aggressive, the application of lavender has been shown to produce a calming effect on the entity. Once calmed, SCP-049 generally becomes compliant and will return to containment with little resistance.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So he's generally cooperative. So I assume he allows the Foundation to perform experiments with him, but there must be some kind of reason that I guess there must be some kind of reason that he allows himself to be contained. Because if he's cooperative, then they're definitely going to contain him. And he's allowing it. So there must be a reason he allows himself to be contained. Also, it's interesting that lavender has a calming effect on him. But I guess that kind of makes sense with the Plague Doctor theme. The masks of the Plague Doctor, since they had to deal with dead bodies all the time. The beak-like masks that they wear, obviously it's to A, protect them from airborne diseases, but B, the whole beak part of it was because they would stuff the nose cone with cloth or flowers or some kind of, like, they would take a cloth and like pour vanilla extract on it or lavender or put flowers or something fragrant into the nose cone of the mask so that while they're dealing with corpses all day, they don't have to smell corpses. So that's kind of interesting. Lavender can calm him down.
In order to facilitate the ongoing containment of SCP-049, the entity is to be provided with the corpse of a recently deceased animal, typically a bovine or other large mammal, once every 2 weeks for study.
Okay. So far I'm liking this because, like, I just asked the question. I said, why does he allow himself to be contained? And then the very next screen explained why he was allowed to be. Got it. They provide him with bodies to work on, I guess. So they must watch him turn things into zombies.
Corpses that become instances of SCP-049-2 are to be removed from SCP-049's containment cell and incinerated. SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact with human subjects, and requests for human subjects are to be denied. Temporary Containment Procedure Update. Per Containment Committee Order 049 Sierra 1917-1, SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact directly with any members of Foundation staff, nor is it to be provided with any additional corpses to be used in its surgeries. This order shall persist indefinitely, until such time a consensus regarding the ongoing containment of SCP-049 can be reached. Addendum 049-1 Discovery.
Okay. Before we get into how he was found, it says that they are going to take away his test subjects. I would assume that that would make him unhappy and, I guess, facilitate the need for him to want to escape. So it seems a little counterproductive to take away the thing that is keeping him there voluntarily. Now, maybe they'll go into this. I don't know if he has any type of abilities to teleport or phase through walls or otherwise make it easy for him to escape containment. So far, it seems like that he can be restrained with just normal methods. Aside from physically touching him, because that'll kill you, but he can be restrained with normal methods. Man catcher sticks, and, you know, he can apparently be strapped down or whatever. I wonder if he can take damage from gunfire.
SCP-049 was discovered during the investigation of a series of unknown disappearances in the town in southern France. During a raid on a local home, investigators found several instances of SCP-049-2 as well as SCP-049. While law enforcement personnel engaged the hostile 049-2 instances, SCP-049 was noted as watching the engagement and taking notes in its journal. After all of the 049-2 instances were dispatched, SCP-049 willingly entered Foundation custody. The following interview was conducted by Dr. Raymond Ham during the initial investigation. Interviewer Dr. Raymond Ham of Site-85, interviewee SCP-049.
Okay.
Alors, comment devrions-nous commencer une introduction?
Is that French? Can we get a translator?
The King's English. No need for translation, sir. I can speak it well enough.
Good. My name is Dr. Raymond Ham, and I...
A doctor. A like-minded individual, no doubt. Wherein is your speciality, sir?
Cryptobiology. Why?
A medical man, such as myself. Wonders abound. And here, I worried I had been abducted by common street thugs. This place, then, this is your laboratory. I had wondered, as clean as it is, and with such little trace of the pestilence here.
The pestilence? What do you mean?
The scourge. The great dying. Come now. You know what is it they call it?
The plague?
No matter. The pestilence, yes. It abounds outside these walls, you know. So many have succumbed, and many more will continue to, until such time as a perfect cure can be developed. Fortunately, I am very close. It is my duty in life to rid the world of it, you see. The cure to end all cures.
The cure to end all cures. I was kind of with it until he said that. Like, they didn't say the year in which he was first contained. I'm kind of interested to know what year he was contained, because it seems like he's a medieval plague doctor, so I'm wondering if he was actually from medieval times and maybe he's persisted, he's survived up into current date, or was he captured in the modern time and he just pretends to be a medieval? Either way, it seems like he has a genuine want to cure people of this pestilence, this plague. But I don't know. Let's keep going. Let's finish the interview first.
When you say the great dying, are you talking about the bubonic plague?
I don't know what that is.
I see. Right, well, the entities our agents encountered at the house, they were dead when you encountered them, yes? You reanimated them.
in a manner of speaking, you see things too simply, Doctor. Expand your horizons. Life and death, sickness and health. These are amateur terms for amateur physicians. There is only one ailment that exists in the world of men, and that is the pestilence, and nothing else. Make no mistake, they were very ill. All of them.
You think you cured those people?
Indeed. My cure is most effective.
But the things we recovered were not human.
Yes, well, it is not a perfect cure, but that will come with time and further experimentation. I have spent a lifetime developing my methods, Dr. Ham, and will spend a lifetime more if necessary. Now, we have wasted too much time. There is work to do. I will require a laboratory of my own, one where I can continue my research unimpeded. And assistance, of course, though I can provide those on my own. In time.
Oh, I don't think our organization would be willing to...
Nonsense. We are all men of science. Fetch your coat and show me to my quarters, Doctor. Our work begins now.
Interesting. So he not only voluntarily he voluntarily let the SCP capture him. He didn't go there. He let them capture him and take them to the facility. But he considers himself a man of science, a doctor, which is pretty interesting. He sees himself as a peer to the scientists at the SCP Foundation. Clearly, the SCP Foundation sees the Plague Doctor as an SCP, something anomalous that needs to be contained and studied. But the Doctor himself sees the Foundation as a like-minded institution of scientific discovery and research. Interesting. Interesting. This is kind of neat because I don't think I've ever seen an SCP so voluntarily work with the Foundation, with the exception of maybe the Tickle Monster, of course, but I don't think it was ever a choice for the Tickle Monster. This is definitely a choice for the Plague Doctor.
Interviewer's notes. While SCP-049 is capable of communicating in a very human way, there is a strange sense of unease that one experiences when in its presence. Make no mistake, there is something very uncanny about this entity indeed.
Yeah, maybe the fact that he's got a Plague Doctor mask growing out of his face.
Additionally, we've confiscated that pointed stick that SCP-049 keeps waving around. Part of this was due to standard confiscation protocols for the possession of anomalies, and part because 049 really is a menace swinging it around like he does. The entity was displeased at first, but after we made some concessions in providing it with test subjects, which are admittedly more for the benefit of our own research, it warmed up to the idea. Addendum 049-2. Observation log.
Okay.
While in containment at Site-19, SCP-049 has spent a considerable amount of time studying and performing surgery on the various mammalian corpses it has been provided. SCP-049 will routinely spend several days performing surgery, and then, regardless of whether or not the corpse becomes an instance of SCP-049-2, spending several more days documenting its findings in a thick leather journal stored within its doctor's bag. SCP-049 will often seek to share its finding with members of Foundation staff. The following is a log of several occasions during which SCP-049 was observed operating on a mammalian corpse.
Okay, so they watch him perform the surgery, and even after the surgery, 049 will speak to the Foundation members and share his findings. So, does the SCP Foundation know how to reanimate corpses like the plague doctor? That's something that they've been able to figure out. Has the plague doctor taught them how to do something like that? Because that seems like it would. It seems like it would be, while being weird, it seems like it would be a benefit, because the way the SCP Foundation uses D-class personnel as disposable, basically just disposable bodies to throw at a situation, this seems like a way where they could, I guess, extend the use of the D-class personnel, send them in. If they get injured or killed, they can be reanimated and then sent into another test. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm also curious to see if, can they read what's in his notebook? I would assume that the plague doctor doesn't just give his notebook out. I assume that's one of his most prized possessions, because that's where he writes down and stores all of his research findings. But I wonder if they're able to look at it and to research his research. But and I'm also curious to see if they give him living test subjects at some point.
Observational Log 049 Oscar Lima 1 Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: a test subject, D85123, was introduced into SCP-049's containment cell. The entity expressed sincere gratitude towards all members of the containment and research staff. Observation Notes: SCP-049 began by asking D85123 several standard medical questions as it began removing tools from its bag.
Okay, so D85123, so I'm assuming this is a D-class personnel. And I'm assuming, if he's asking it medical questions, that this is a living D-class personnel. Got it. And he...
Shortly after finishing its preparations, SCP-049 quickly closed the distance between the two, killing the subject with a touch to its throat. Afterwards, SCP-049 made a number of considerable alterations to the basic structure of the subject's corpse, often introducing fluids from within its bag into the subject by way of a hand-powered pump and copper tubing. The resulting 049-2 instance became animated, flailing and grasping at the walls of the chamber with a number of manufactured limbs while moaning out of an oblong orifice now present in its sternum. During this time, SCP-049 was observed taking notes of the instance in its journal and remarking to the watching research staff about the efficiency of its
manufactured limbs. So did he add limbs to the corpse? And also, I guess he's pumping a mystery fluid from his doctor bag into the corpse.
Its cure. Security personnel entered the chamber to move SCP-049 back to containment and were attacked by the instance. The security team dispatched the 049-2 instance, and SCP-049 returned to containment with no resistance, stating that it was pleased with the results.
Oh,
Observational Log 049 Oscar Lima 2 Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased goat. SCP-049 expressed gratitude at the provision. Observational Notes: SCP-049 operated on the goat corpse for several days, eventually resulting in an instance of SCP-049-2. SCP-049 expressed pleasure in this outcome, though admitted, "The disease was still in its nascent stage, my veterinarian practice is rudimentary, but the patient responded well to the procedure." Observational Log 049 Oscar Lima 3 Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased orangutan. SCP-049.
Did they give him a living D-class personnel before they gave him the corpse of an ape? Really? Because you think that they would have started with the goat and then moved on to the humanoid ape, and then moved on to like a dead human, and then moved on to a living D-class personnel. But SCP Foundation, always with them D-class personnel. I guess they got a bunch of them.
9 expressed noted gratitude at the provision due to the similarities between the orangutan and common human physiology.
Right.
Observation Notes. SCP-049 spent several days operating on the orangutan, reanimating it several times. However, SCP-049 appeared to be discontent with the results it experienced, returning to the creature 3 times after its initial reanimation for additional work. After it was unable to reanimate the corpse a 5th time, SCP-049 turned the corpse over to Foundation staff for incineration, stating, "I have learned so much from this, though I fear my early optimism was misplaced. I haven't yet come across such a stumbling block on my road to the cure. More subjects like this would do a great deal in advancing my research."
Yo, for some reason, as I was reading that last paragraph, it reminded me of that scene from Futurama where they're like, "Oh, we can make scientific advancements," and one of the characters goes, "without heaps of dead monkeys," and then Farnsworth says something along the lines of, you know, "Science can't progress without heaps of monkeys." And it just reminded me of this for some reason.
Observational Log 049 Oscar Lima 7 full. Subject SCP-049 Preface. SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased bovine. SCP-049 expressed mild annoyance at the provision, though accepted it nonetheless. Observational Notes. SCP-049 spent several days operating on the bovine corpse, breaking only to dine on a requested dinner of thin crackers, salted pork, and hard cheese.
Okay, so I guess he eats like normal? Guess he can put food into the Plague Doctor map?
Beginning first by embalming the corpse, SCP-049 was observed producing a number of long syringes from its bag, each containing a different dark viscous fluid. SCP-049 described these fluids as essences of the humors, and elaborated by saying the pestilence may bring about a systemic imbalance. In such a case, before true healing can begin, one must find the humors in balance, or the body will reject the cure.
So, back in the day, when medical understanding was very limited, they believed that the body had humors, and these humors had different colors. So you could have a white humor, a black humor, a gray humor, and they were all supposed to be, you know, essences of the body. What makes you run. And so way back in the day, they would inject all kinds of stuff into the body, a lot of it being dangerous or lethal, in an attempt to balance a person's humors. So this comes from the history of the Plague Doctor, like the real Plague Doctor. So that's kind of interesting.
Cure. Over the next few days, SCP-049 spent a considerable amount of time adjusting the organs of the bovine corpse with a number of large metal instruments. After 8 days, SCP-049 produced a lightning rod, which Dr. Ham exchanged for an electric cattle prod attached to an extension cord, and struck the corpse in several locations. This action seemingly had the effect of reanimating the bovine, which once again became ambulatory, despite the inversion of the head and reorientation of its limbs.
My goodness. Oh, man.
Follow-up interview.
We've watched you work for several weeks now, and honestly, I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. Could you describe your process in detail?
Oh, goodness no. The process is most intensive. As I said to your assistant, the best instruction you will find about my methods are here, in my journals, as I have kept exhaustive records of my work there.
Oh, I see. Well, my concern, Doctor, is that we still don't understand what you're seeking to cure, or how it manifests, or How turning these creatures into quasi-living, mindless drones helps in that effort.
You do not understand the pestilence, even after all this time. Doctor, it is an unspeakable horror, one that has shown its true face many times before, and will again. I find myself blessed with the wisdom and good senses needed to root it out and destroy it. But many, like yourself, cannot. It is a cruel judgment, I fear, to be at the mercy of a disease you cannot fully comprehend.
That still doesn't answer my question. How's your cure any kind of cure at all?
It is a cure. You may laugh at my efforts if you please, but do not besmirch the good name of scientific progress that has developed this great mercy. What you short-sightedly see here is a life better than any this creature could have hoped for. Stricken as it was with the pestilence, this creature is now clean, unable to spread the pestilence, and free from the terror it would have experienced otherwise.
This is hardly a creature at all, Doctor. It's not even...
Do not jape with me, sir. You and your colleagues are like so many others, unable to look past minor setbacks to see the salvation taking place before your very eyes. Do you wait to remove rotten timbers until the whole collapses on top of you? No. You find them and you pull them out and replace them with those untouched by rot. And most of all, you do not simply mock the structure because it now looks different to you. It is strong. It is free of disease.
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to agitate you. I'm just trying to understand.
Yes. Well, do mind your words in the future, Doctor. I am a professional, but even professionals may feel the bite of pride in dealing with criticism of their masterpiece. I will forgive this as an act of good faith between colleagues.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that will be all. Another test subject on the usual schedule. You know my preference of subjects with more human anatomies.
Attending researchers' notes. SCP-049 does seem to genuinely want to help other humans, though it has not yet been able to provide a concrete example of what exactly it is trying to save us all from. I have watched it now over several weeks, and while the outcomes do not seem to ever change, SCP-049 continues to claim that it is growing closer to its perfect cure. I think the entity may be more aware of the reality of these outcomes than it would like us to think. Addendum 049-3, 16th of April 2017 incident. Starting shortly after SCP-049's initial containment.
Plague Doctor is an interesting one. The Plague Doctor's kind of a head scratcher. His motivations seem kind of contrary to his action. Okay, let's just keep going. Let's keep going.
Dr. Ham conducted a number of interviews with the subject regarding its anomalous properties, and over time began to note its displeasure with its subjects and the SCP-049-2 instances. This continued for a period of several months, during which SCP-049 never exhibited any aggressive behaviours. On April 16, 2017, as Dr. Ham was entering SCP-049's test chamber to conduct another routine interview, the entity began to grow anxious and asked Dr. Ham if he was feeling well. Following protocol, Dr. Ham reminded SCP-049 that the interview was required, and after which the entity became hostile and attacked Dr. Ham, killing him. Due to a lapse in security protocol and because Dr. Ham did not activate the in-chamber emergency system, Dr. Ham's corpse was not discovered until 3 hours later, by which point SCP-049 had converted it into an instance of SCP-0...
3 hours. For the Foundation, this seems kind of inconsistent. In most, if not all, of the experimentations we've seen in other videos, even if there's a researcher doing an interview or any kind of interaction between the Foundation and an SCP, there's always more than one person present. To assume that the doctor went in there by himself to perform an official interview, as is routine, you're telling me that there was no other staff viewing this, even from the other side of a two-way mirror or in a security room viewing a camera? That there was nobody in the Foundation, that Dr. Ham didn't have any type of assistance or anything like that? That he just walked into a room of a known dangerous SCP by himself and no one else knew about it? A place like the Foundation would have protocols in place. This seems a little inconsistent, but okay.
049-2. In the aftermath of this incident, SCP-049 was interviewed by Dr. Sherman. Interviewer...
Like, I'm sure Dr. Sherman didn't just walk into the room by himself, unattended, with no one viewing this interview. Like, come on.
Dr. Sherman, Site 42. Interviewee SCP-049.
I need you to explain yourself. SCP-049, you are being directed to explain your actions, and I will remind you that failure to cooperate will result in further restrictions during your containment.
My actions do not need to be explained.
You killed Raymond Ham, and then butchered him until he...
Not dead. No, not dead. He is cured.
Cured? Cured of what?
The pestilence, sir. I had thought you, at least, would realize what luck it is. I detected it before.
What pestilence? You keep going on and on about this pestilence, but you have not once been able to properly identify this disease. What could you have possibly seen in him today that you had not seen so many times before? That it would be worth his life?
The pestilence presents and progresses in unforeseeable fashions, and has a queer way of creeping into the unprepared. And call it what you want, Doctor. It was a mercy I did to him. He is cured.
He is a vegetable.
I would not expect you to understand. You and your ilk have proven time and time again not to be men of science, but men of emotion. You cannot appreciate the horrors I have seen. Those many millions who have succumbed to the pestilence and been changed.
Your cure cost Ray his life.
No, good sir. I have saved it. You would allow this world to slip back into the despair of disease and death, ignoring that I have created a miracle. And
what disease? What pestilence? He was a healthy man. He was a good doctor.
I'm offering it freely to the afflicted. You are not worth this argument, sir. You are short-sighted and foolish. Dr. Ham was sick, and I cured him. I am the only one who can do this. My work must continue. There is still so much to learn, so much.
I've had enough of this. Consider your allowances revoked.
Even you.
Welcome to Containment, 049.
Might be saved.
We're done here.
I can save them all. I can cast down this plague once and for all. I can do this. Only me. I saved him. Dr. Ham. I cured him. He was sick. I know he was sick. I know he was. And you are all sick, but I can save you. I can save all of you, because I am the cure.
Got a bad feeling about this, guys. Got a bad feeling about this. I'm smelling a containment breach soon. because the plague doctor is not happy. He's becoming disillusioned with Foundation, its methods, and its ability to understand him. And now they are threatening to take away all of his scientific research subjects. I'm smelling a breach here soon, guys.
Addendum 0494, Post-Incident Report Interview. The following interview is an excerpt from the 16th of April 2017 049 Incident Report. The interview was conducted by Dr. Elijah Itkin and took place 3 weeks after the start of the initial investigation. Interviewer Dr. Elijah Itkin, interviewee SCP-049.
SCP-049, we are conducting this interview to close out our investigation of your actions taken on April 16th that resulted in the death of a staff member. Do you have any comments to make? Only that I look forward to the day when you will allow me to resume my work. I have spent the last few weeks compiling my notes and constructing a new theory for how the pestilence was able to infect someone in such an insidious manner that I nearly couldn't detect it. Have you experienced any remorse for your actions? For the death of Dr. Ham? Ah, yes. Well, the death of a colleague is always regrettable. But in the face of the pestilence, we must be swift, Doctor, and act without hesitation. Dr. Sherman noted in his report that you seemed to be mournful during your initial interview. Mourn? Perhaps. I had not thought that. It is lamentable that a fellow doctor became infected, but the work continues. Regrettable as it was, Dr. Ham's death provided important insight. Living human subjects are the only way to proceed forward, I am decided. My cure is of little use on dead flesh, and I have gleaned all I can from your generous supply of corpses. My desires turn towards tending to those still living who suffer from the disease. I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Oh, Doctor. I wouldn't be so
Oh boy, it's coming, isn't it? It's coming, isn't it?
sure.
And so concludes SCP-049, the Plague Doctor.
Really? I thought he was gonna containment breach. Whew. Okay, guys. Let's mull it over real quick. The Plague Doctor. Man, he's a head scratcher. His intentions, his goals seem good. He seems like he genuinely wants to help people, yet his inability to elaborate on what it is that he's trying to cure is just a huge issue. I was trying to think of something that this pestilence could be. It doesn't seem to be anything that is outwardly biological, though I'm not sure. So I started to kind of think down the track of, well, maybe the pestilence is something more abstract. Maybe it's something like, man's inner evil or something like that. But that can't be the case because he claims that the pestilence can still be seen in animals and in corpses. So it can't be something like that. It can't be like inherent evil or evil actions, thoughts, or deeds. So yeah, man, it's really hard to say. He's kind of hard to pin down, but he's a unique character in the fact that he sees himself as a medical professional. He sees himself as a scientist, as someone who is using the scientific method to produce results. And he does produce results, just not our desired results. So very interesting. As for this video, this one is running kind of long, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. While it's not animated, it does certainly provide more information than the ones we have been looking at. And I do like the fact that I would ask a question or pose a thought, and then shortly thereafter, it would typically be answered. Now, obviously, with an SCP like this, I've got a lot more questions. Not all my questions were answered, and that is to be expected. But in general, I'm happy with it. I will be checking out some more stuff from SCP Illustrated, the Vulcan, maybe the Exploring series, and of course the SCP Explained, like we've been doing. So, if you guys have liked this video, if you enjoyed it, please leave a like, leave a sub. Feel free to comment down below. Let me know what SCP you want me to take a look at next. Let me know what site you want me to take a look at next. We've got a couple that have been kind of floated around there. I got a video on the sculpture coming soon because that one was already in the pipeline before I did this. But I like it, guys. So we will continue to branch out into the world of the SCP Foundation on these different websites. Until next time, guys, thanks for joining me. As always, take care of yourselves and have a great day.
Well, as a man enters his 18th decade, he thinks back on the mistakes he's made in life.
Like the heaps of dead monkeys?
Science cannot move forward without heaps.